Jesus, Charlotte, can you lighten up for once in your life? It's a party, not a board meeting. The text from my brother Tyler lit up my phone as I stood in the corner of my parents' backyard, watching my siblings down shots at the makeshift bar they'd set up. I was 32, the oldest of four, and apparently still the family killjoy. I smoothed down my sensible navy dress and tucked my phone away, feeling that familiar knot in my stomach, the one that formed whenever I was around my siblings for more than an hour. All three of them, Tyler, 30, Mia, 28, and Zach, 26, were clustered together by the pool, laughing at something on Mia's phone. Probably another meme about uptight older sisters. Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary party was in full swing in their modest backyard in Folsom, Pennsylvania. Not exactly a wild rager, but my siblings had managed to turn even this milestone celebration into their own personal happy hour. Meanwhile, I'd spent the past week coordinating with caterers, creating playlists of our parents' favorite songs, and assembling photo albums chronicling their marriage. I'd even taken 3 days off work to drive to 4 different bakeries until I found one that could recreate their original wedding cake design. "Charlotte," my father waved me over. "Come take a picture with your brothers and sister." I plastered on a smile and walked over. As we arranged ourselves for the photo, Tyler whispered, "Try not to look like you're at a funeral, Char." The photographer, actually just my cousin Emma with a decent camera, counted down. 3, 2. "Wait," Mia interrupted. "Charlotte's got her 'I'm disappointed in all of you' face on." She proceeded to mimic my expression, pulling her mouth into an exaggerated frown and narrowing her eyes. Tyler and Zach erupted into laughter. "That's exactly it," Zach pointed. "That's her 'did you file your taxes yet' face." I forced a laugh, even as something twisted inside me. 20 years of this, of being the punchline to their collective joke, the boring one, the responsible one, the one who called to check if they'd made their student loan payments or remembered Mom's birthday. "Let's just take the picture," I said quietly. "See, always rushing us," Tyler teased, throwing an arm around my shoulder that felt more like a restraint than affection. The photo was snapped, and they quickly dispersed, leaving me standing alone again. I watched as they rejoined their respective partners. Tyler with his third girlfriend this year, a bubbly blonde named Kaylee, who seemed nice enough but clearly had no idea what she was getting into. Mia with her husband Eric, who I'd bailed out of a DUI last Christmas, watching as he downed another beer while chatting with my parents. And Zach with Madison, his latest girlfriend, who'd already asked me twice if I could put in a good word about her graphic design business to my company. I headed inside to check on the anniversary cake. The kitchen was blissfully empty, and I took a moment to breathe. On the fridge, held by magnets, were photos of my siblings' accomplishments. Mia's art show opening, which I'd helped her hang at 2 a.m. after she procrastinated. Tyler's promotion, for which I'd mock interviewed him for 3 evenings straight. Zach's completion of his master's program, with a thesis I'd edited and formatted over a sleepless weekend. All events I'd attended, cheered for, and in some cases, helped make happen. There was one photo of me, taken at my law school graduation 8 years ago. I'd since changed careers to compliance management after realizing corporate law wasn't for me. But that career shift, like most things about my actual life, wasn't something my family had bothered to notice or ask about. My phone buzzed with a group text from them. "Zach? Almost time for the toast. Please don't make it boring AF like last year." Yeah, some of us want to actually enjoy the party, lol. Don't worry, guys. I have emergency shots for after Charlotte puts everyone to sleep with her speech. 20 years. 20 years of being the emergency contact, the bail money, the proofreader, the job reference, the shoulder to cry on, the one who showed up. 20 years of being the punchline. Something inside me, something that had been bending and bending, finally snapped. I stared at the text thread, my finger hovering over the keyboard. But instead of typing another placating response, I took a screenshot. Then I opened my photo gallery and began scrolling through years of saved texts, emails, and pictures. Evidence I'd kept without even realizing why I was keeping it. There was the frantic 3 a.m. call from Mia 2 years ago when Eric had been pulled over with a BAC twice the legal limit. The series of texts from Tyler asking for just a small loan that had turned into $6,000 I'd never seen again. The dozens of reminders I'd sent Zach about deadlines for his graduate program that he'd missed anyway, leading to my all-nighter, fixing his work. But there were other photos, too, ones my siblings had never seen. The cabin in the Poconos I'd purchased last year, a small but beautiful 2-bedroom sanctuary on a quiet lake. The certificate naming me Volunteer of the Year at the Youth Recovery Center where I taught financial literacy. The acceptance letter from the foster care system approving me as a potential parent. The toast was in 30 minutes. Just enough time. I ducked into my parents' home office and quickly connected my phone to their printer. As pages began to emerge, screenshots, photos, receipts, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth, about finally being seen. The timer on my phone chimed, reminding me it was time for the cake. I gathered my printouts, tucked them into a folder, and returned to the kitchen just as the catering staff arrived with the replica wedding cake I'd spent weeks arranging. Perfect timing, I said to them, my voice steadier than it had been all day. I stood at the head of the long table set up in the backyard, champagne glass in hand. My parents beamed from their seats of honor, surrounded by friends and extended family. My siblings were still snickering among themselves, probably placing bets on how dull my speech would be. For those who don't know me, I'm Charlotte, the oldest of the Warner children, I began. My voice was steady, calmer than I'd expected. And I've been asked to say a few words about my parents' marriage. I saw Mia pretend to yawn behind her hand, making Tyler choke back a laugh. Madison, Zach's girlfriend, didn't even bother to look up from her phone. But before I talk about their partnership, I want to talk about what they taught us about family, about showing up for each other, about having each other's backs. Something in my tone must have shifted, because my mother's smile faltered slightly. She'd always been perceptive, always the first to sense when something was off with one of her children. Mom, Dad, you modeled what it means to support each other through thick and thin. I've tried to honor that example. I paused, making eye contact with each of my siblings. In fact, I keep a record of all the ways we've supported each other as siblings. I pulled out my phone, like when Tyler lost his apartment last year because he spent his rent money on concert tickets and stayed on my couch for just a few days. That turned into 3 months. Or when I co-signed Mia's car loan after she and Eric spent their savings on that Bahamas trip they couldn't afford. Or when I edited all 78 pages of Zach's master's thesis, the one he barely submitted on time despite my reminders, the one he'd left until the last minute while spending that semester playing video games instead of working. The backyard had gone very quiet. I could hear the ice clinking in glasses and a neighbor's dog barking in the distance. What I've realized is that I've been showing up for all of you, again and again, while you've been mocking me for being responsible. I swiped through my phone. In fact, I have a favorite text thread from last Christmas where you all placed bets on whether I'd wear a turtleneck to dinner. Tyler, you bet $20, I believe. I looked up. I did wear a turtleneck, by the way, because I had just come from bailing Mia's husband out after his DUI stop, and I didn't have time to change. I was too busy keeping him from spending the night in a cell while you all started dinner without us. Mia's husband shrank in his seat. Her parents-in-law, seated nearby, turned to stare at them. Eric had told them he'd been at a work event that night. Charlotte, my father said warningly, his face flushed with embarrassment. No, Dad, I think it's important to celebrate how we support each other, I continued, my voice still pleasant. Like how I've been paying Zach's student loan minimum for the past year while he, quote, finds himself. That's $437 a month, by the way. Or how Tyler borrowed $6,000 from me for investment purposes that somehow turned into a weekend in Vegas with his buddies. I have the Venmo receipt right here. I held up one of my printouts. You labeled it business opportunity. Tyler's girlfriend turned to him with raised eyebrows. I could see the exact moment she started reconsidering her choices. And let's not forget the times I've called in sick to work to drive one of you to doctor's appointments, or court dates, or job interviews that you overslept for. I counted recently. I've used 17 personal days in the last 2 years just handling your emergencies. I set my phone down and picked up the folder of printouts, all while being the butt of your jokes about being uptight, boring, and no fun. All while you texted each other about Hurricane Charlotte whenever I tried to offer advice. Yes, I saw those texts too, Mia, when you handed me your phone to take a photo at Christmas and a notification came through. Mia's face drained of color. She'd always been terrible at hiding her emotions. The silence was absolute now. My parents looked stunned. My siblings were pale. Even the catering staff had stopped moving, frozen in the act of refilling water glasses. But here's what you don't know, I continued, picking up my champagne glass again. While I was being boring Charlotte and building my career, I was also buying a small vacation cabin in the Poconos. I've been approved to foster children as a single parent, something I've been working toward for 2 years. I've published poetry under a pen name that's been featured in 3 literary journals. I volunteer teaching financial literacy to teenagers in recovery from addiction, and last month, I received an award for my work there. I reached into the folder and pulled out a photograph of my cabin, sliding it onto the table. Then, another of my volunteer certificate. Another of my published poetry collection. I have a full, rich life that none of you have bothered to ask about because you were too busy dismissing me as the family drill sergeant, too occupied with taking what you needed and then mocking me for being the kind of person who would give it to you. I took a deliberate sip of champagne, feeling the tartness on my tongue. So here's to Mom and Dad. I raised my glass. Thank you for teaching me the value of showing up for family. I hope all your children can live up to that example someday. I sat down to absolute silence, followed by uncertain applause led by my Aunt Susan, who had always had a soft spot for me. Across the table, my mother's eyes were filled with tears, not of anger, but of realization. My father stared at his plate, his jaw working, and my siblings couldn't look at me at all. The party disintegrated shortly after. Friends and extended family made awkward excuses to leave early. My parents huddled together, speaking in low, concerned voices. My siblings avoided looking at me, each finding reasons to be in different corners of the yard. I was loading leftover food into the refrigerator when Tyler appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression unreadable. I noticed Kaylee was no longer with him. "That was quite a toast," he said finally, leaning against the doorframe with false casualness. "It was honest," I replied, not looking up from the container of pasta salad I was sealing. "You humiliated us in front of everyone. You've been humiliating me for decades." He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he'd had since childhood. "Come on, Char. It was just jokes." I finally looked at him. "No, it wasn't. It was a way to make yourselves feel better about taking advantage of me, about dismissing me, about seeing me as nothing more than your personal safety net with no life of my own." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "The $6,000 wasn't a joke, Tyler. Neither was the 3 months on my couch when you ate all my food and didn't contribute a dime to utilities." He had the decency to look ashamed. "I'll pay you back." "I know you will. Starting next month. We'll set up a payment plan." I handed him a sheet of paper I'd prepared earlier. $500 a month until it's paid off. I've included the dates and the Venmo information. He took the paper looking stunned. "You're serious?" "Completely." I sealed another container. "And I won't be available for emergency loans anymore, for any of you." I could see the realization dawning on him that the rules had changed, that I had changed them. "Charlotte," he started. "I have one more thing to say," I interrupted. "I love you, all of you. But I'm done being the family ATM and emotional support human while you mock me behind my back and to my face. I deserve better from the people who should know me best." He stood there, paper in hand, looking lost. For the first time in our adult lives, I saw my younger brother actually seeing me. "I didn't know about the poetry," he said finally, "or the cabin." "You never asked," I replied simply. "About any of it." He nodded slowly. "I'll get the money to you. I promise." "Thank you." As he turned to leave, he paused. "Kaylee broke up with me. She said she doesn't want to date someone who treats their family like an ATM." I didn't offer sympathy. Smart woman. Mia showed up at my apartment the next morning, eyes red-rimmed from crying. I let her in without a word. I've been a terrible sister, she said, sitting at my kitchen counter while I made coffee. Sometimes, I agreed, measuring grounds into the filter. She flinched but didn't argue. I didn't know you published poetry. What name do you use? Huff, that's not the point, Mia. I know, but I want to read it. I want to know that part of you. I studied her face for signs of mockery, but found none. Her expression was open, almost eager in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Emma Lark, I said finally, pouring hot water over the grounds. Her eyes widened. Wait, Emma Lark? The one who wrote Scaffolding? That collection is incredible. We sell it at the bookstore. I've recommended it to customers. Something warm and unexpected bloomed in my chest. Thank you. She looked around my apartment as if seeing it for the first time. The wall of books, the small writing desk in the corner, the framed photographs of places I'd traveled to alone because no one ever wanted to join me. You have a good life, don't you? Without us, I mean. I have a life I built while you were all dismissing me as boring. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Charlotte. Really sorry. I know. Are you really fostering kids? I've been approved. I'm waiting for a placement. I handed her a mug of coffee. Probably a teenager. They're the hardest to place, and I think I might understand them better than most. Her eyes filled with tears. You'll be an amazing mother. I've had practice, I said quietly. She winced at the truth of it, then took a deep breath. I told Eric he needs to go to AA. Last night after the party, he didn't take it well, but I'm not backing down. You were right to call him out. I've been enabling him. I nodded, surprised by her resolve. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but watching you stand up to all of us, it made me realize I could stand up to him too. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I also called his parents and told them the truth about the DUI. The whole truth. It was not a fun conversation. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of real respect for my sister. That was brave. I learned it from you, she said simply. Zach was the hardest. He avoided me for 2 weeks, ignoring my texts and calls. Madison had apparently dumped him right after the party, and he'd been sulking ever since. He finally showed up at my office on a Tuesday afternoon, looking uncomfortable in the sleek downtown building where I worked as a compliance director. My assistant eyed him skeptically. She'd heard enough stories about my family, but showed him in. Nice office, he said, glancing around at my view of the Delaware River. Big promotion from the cubicle you had last time I visited. That was 4 years ago, Zach, I pointed out. He had the grace to look embarrassed. Right. I didn't offer him a seat. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, running a hand through his hair that needed a cut. So, I've been thinking about what you said. Which part? All of it. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. This is the first payment for my student loans. I got a real job, assistant manager at Horizon Tech in media. I took the envelope, surprised by its weight. Congratulations on the job. I've been using you as a crutch, he admitted. It was easier than growing up. I nodded, neither agreeing nor disagreeing out loud. But that ends now, he continued, more animated than I'd seen him in years. I made a budget. I've got a roommate to split costs. I'm handling my own stuff from now on. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of the man Zach could become without his safety nets. I'm proud of you, I said, and meant it. Also, I broke up with Madison. Well, technically she broke up with me at the party, but it was the right call. She called you a bitch after your toast, and I realized I didn't want to be with someone who talks about my family that way. Thank you, I said simply. I finally gestured to the chair across from my desk. He sat, looking around at the framed certificates on my wall. You volunteer with kids? He asked, noticing my service award. Teenagers in recovery. I teach them about money management, credit scores, how to build financial security. That's really cool, actually. He sounded genuinely impressed. Is that why you want to foster? Partly. I like teenagers. They're complicated and difficult and searching for themselves. But they're also just one solid adult away from finding their way. He looked at me with new understanding. Like you were for us. I shrugged. Different circumstances. As he turned to leave, he paused. One more thing. Can you teach me how to do my taxes this year? For real this time, not just filing an extension. I smiled slightly. Yes, but you're bringing the coffee. Deal. He grinned. A real smile, not the mocking one I was used to. Hazelnut latte, right? I blinked, surprised he remembered. right? 3 months later, we gathered at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, a tradition I'd been maintaining alone for years, with my siblings finding endless excuses to skip. Work brunch, Tyler would text. Eric's parents in town, from Mia. Can I take a rain check? From Zach, without specifying when that check might be cashed. But today, they were all there. Tyler arrived early to help cook, wearing an apron and chopping vegetables with surprising skill. Mia brought a book of my poetry for me to sign, along with a framed review from the Philadelphia Inquirer that called my work quietly devastating. Zach had fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom before dinner without being asked. They were trying. As we sat around the table, there was an awkward moment when everyone looked at me, expecting me to serve and organize everything as usual. Instead, I simply sat back. I think we should take turns hosting Sunday dinner, I suggested, passing the breadbasket to my mother. My place next month, then Tyler's, then Mia's, then Zach's. They exchanged glances, then nodded. My apartment's kind of small, Zach said, but I could make it work. Mine too, said Tyler, but I make a decent lasagna now. When did you learn to cook? Mia asked, surprised. Charlotte taught me when I was staying with her, he admitted. I just never bothered to do it before. My phone buzzed with a text. It was my social worker. I read it and felt my heart skip. Everything okay? My mother asked, noticing my expression. Yes, I said, looking up. That was about my foster placement. I'm getting a 13-year-old girl next week. Her name is Delia. The table erupted in congratulations. My father wiped away a tear. We'll help, Mia said immediately. I can take her shopping for school clothes. I'll set up her computer, Zach offered, and help with homework if she needs it. I was good at math, remember? And I can hang out with her when you need a break, Tyler added. I'm good with kids. I looked around at my siblings, really looked at them, and saw what I'd been missing. They weren't just takers. They had just never been asked to give. Thank you, I said. I'd like that. Later, as we cleared the table together, all of us working for once, Tyler nudged my shoulder. Hey, Char? That cabin in the Poconos. Any chance we could see it someday? I smiled. Maybe for Thanksgiving, if you all behave. He laughed, and for the first time in years, it wasn't at my expense. Delia arrived the following Wednesday, a lanky 13-year-old with dark hair cut short, nervous eyes, and a single duffel bag containing everything she owned. She'd been in the system since she was 8, bounced between 6 different homes. Her file listed her as behaviorally challenging, but all I saw was a girl who'd learned that nothing in her life was permanent. This is your room, I told her, showing her the space I'd prepared. Simple but comfortable, with a desk, a bookshelf, and a bulletin board where she could put up her own things. You can decorate it however you want. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. How long am I staying? The question broke my heart a little. As long as you want to, I said. This placement doesn't have an end date. She looked up then, suspicious. Everyone says that. I know, but I mean it. The first month was hard. Delia tested every boundary, broke curfew twice, and once I found her trying to sneak out the fire escape at 2 a.m. But I'd expected this, had been trained for it in my fostering classes. What I hadn't expected was how my siblings would step up. Mia took Delia shopping and didn't bat an eye when she picked out clothes that were all black. Tyler taught her how to skateboard in the park near my apartment. Zach helped her with her math homework, showing more patience than I'd ever seen from him. Slowly, Delia began to trust us, all of us. The Warner family circus, dysfunctional but trying. 6 months after the toast that changed everything, I sat on the porch of my Poconos cabin, watching my siblings teaching Delia how to roast marshmallows properly over the fire pit we'd built together that afternoon. Tyler had paid back every cent and was dating someone new, a kindergarten teacher named Rebecca, who challenged him in ways his previous girlfriends never had. Mia had hung my poetry collection in her bookstore's front window display, and sales had tripled. She and Eric were in couples counseling, and he was 6 months sober. Zach had been promoted and was talking about buying a condo, having learned enough about financial planning to qualify for a mortgage on his own. And me? I was still the oldest, still the responsible one. But now those weren't punchlines. They were traits my siblings had come to respect. I'd also learned to ask for help, to let them step up, to see them as the adults they were capable of being, rather than the children they'd been acting like. "Mom," Delia called out, still new enough that the word sounded tentative on her lips. "Uncle Tyler says I need a second opinion on my marshmallow technique." Mom, Uncle Tyler, words that felt like victory. I set down my wine glass and joined them by the fire, accepting the marshmallow skewer Delia handed me. "What do you think?" she asked anxiously. "Is it done enough?" I examined her perfectly golden brown marshmallow and smiled. "It's perfect," I said. "Absolutely perfect."